What was a perfectly normal situation for you in the 80s to the 90s that the younger generation just can't relate to? Sitting by the radio waiting for your favorite new song to come on so you could record it onto a cassette tape. And hoping the jackass DJ didn't talk over the first 45 seconds. Spoiler alert, he always did. What worked for me was recording later at night. The DJ was less likely to talk over the intro compared to the daytime or afternoon. Unless it was Tim Westwood, he'd never shut up through the whole song and had a soundboard which he used to its fullest extent. It was the audio equivalent of having a mental breakdown. I tried to explain this to my daughter, she's 10, and her eyes glazed over and I think she didn't care or didn't believe me. She was like, "Okay, Mom." As someone who was a child, she just doesn't care. Someone else here who also used to be a child, I can verify this. And if you got lucky and they didn't spoil the start of the song, you could be sure they would cut in before it ended. Someone calling the landline and disconnecting the internet. Or getting a busy signal for hours. My parents forgot to pick me up from hockey one day and I had to call on a pay phone using a phone card but got a busy signal for hours because my sister was on the internet. That's one of the most 90s sentences I've read. We know it's probably after 1995 because before that, it's more likely he would have gotten a ride from some near random. I actually got reported missing because of that once. Something had come up unexpectedly, which forced me to move to another city. I had a friend that had recently moved back to her hometown the next state over, and I hadn't gotten her new address. I tried to call her to give her the lowdown, but I kept getting a busy signal because her kids were always on the internet. Calling at night got me nowhere, because her hubby liked to shut off the ringer when the family went to bed. I finally mailed a postcard to her old address and hoped it got forwarded. I moved, kept trying to call her, kept getting a busy signal, until finally 3 weeks later, a county sheriff shows up on my doorstep. I'd been reported missing by the friend that I'd been trying to get a hold of. The postcard had apparently not gotten forwarded. With me safe and sound, the case was closed, but it still took until the start of the school year, when I could finally call while her kids were at school, for her to find out where I went. Being deafened by the sound of the internet. Don't pick up the phone, my Blink-182 song only has 1.5 more hours to download. LimeWire gave me some effed up versions of songs I still have to this day. Edit, y'all are beautiful. Several of the songs I downloaded back in the day had some distortion or sounds for a second somewhere in the song, and still to this day when I listen to those songs I automatically expect to hear said distortion in the song. Yes. I have one song that actually skipped and it's weird now when I listen to it and it doesn't skip. You reminded me that I still have a copy of Every Rose Has Its Thorn that sounds like it was recorded from an AM radio station broadcasting 50 miles away. Having arguments about factual information and having absolutely no way of determining who is correct. That's actually why the Guinness Book of World Records exists. The managing director of the Guinness Brewery noticed people in pubs were arguing about who was the most this or that, so he decided to compile them all into a book so pubs could have it on hand for reference. This sounds like a fun movie to write and direct. That's the second best idea anyone in the Guinness family has ever had. They have a 999,9000 year lease on their brewing estate in central Dublin. It's practically free real estate. Are you saying that the Guinness Book of World Records doesn't hold the record for being the best Guinness idea in the world? How about having arguments about factual information and having an absolutely positive way of determining who is correct, but the other side absolutely refuses to accept it? We call that Twitter. I was thinking the other day about how I applied for out-of-state college, 1989. How did I even do that? Did I write to them and ask for an application, then fill it out and mail it back? When I applied to graduate school, 1993, how did I even know which schools had my program? Did I go to the library or something? Sitting here in 2020 imagining doing those things with no internet, it seems impossible. But since I don't even remember how I accomplished it, it must have been pretty mundane at the time. Sounds like a effing hassle if you ask me. I remember having to go register for classes in person. You'd get a random appointment time and go to college to see a registration person. You hope you were lucky enough that all the courses you needed to take weren't full yet. If they were, you'd need to find another course on the spot, changing your whole schedule and life. Or using the telephone version of registration later. Getting up at 5 a.m. on first day of phone registration to keep dialing until you got through and having the course numbers pre-written on a notepad, along with alternates, ready to go, and making damn sure you got it right before hanging up. Open registration was useless because it was all scraps by then. I can't remember either. I know there was a huge book, almost like a phone book, that had rankings and blurbs about all the colleges in the US. I think the guidance office at my HS might have had some applications. I know there was something called the Common Application that you could use to apply to most schools if you didn't have their actual application. Common App is actually still a thing too. You sent off for college catalogs. I had a teacher in 8th grade that made us begin researching colleges because she said it was never too soon to start thinking about it. So I chose a handful and sent off for catalogs. If you did well on the PSAT and SAT, they started flooding you with them unsolicited. So many private liberal arts colleges with beautiful ads. Such poor kid sadness. Going to a restaurant and being asked, would you like to sit in smoking or non-smoking? There were smoking sections on airplanes. I can remember, as a kid of about 6, being super sick with a chest cold. My parents had to work, so my grandpa came to stay with me, and just like Perter Falk in The Princess Bride, he sat by my bed and read me stories, all the while chain smoking. I was coughing my ass off, and he was trying to comfort me while filling my room with smoke. Nobody even thought about it. Crap was weird in olden times. Mom probably gave me some codeine-laced cough syrup when she got home. Mom gave me a tot of brandy if the coughing was really bad. Original lean sipper. You could smoke in your hospital bed in the UK until the early 90s, after that you had to drag yourself into the TV room. You could also smoke in department stores until the mid-90s, they had ashtrays around the store, Imaging now buying new clothes that smelt of cigs. My parents both started teaching in the same high school in the late 1970s, in the UK. Apparently there were 4 staff rooms in the building. Male, smoking male, non-smoking female, smoking female, non-smoking. They moved schools in the 80s a few times, both ended up at different schools along the way, and there were still smoking and non-smoking staff rooms in most schools until the late 90s. Although the gender split had gone by the 80s. My first high school I went to in 1989 had a seniors smoking area. For students. People smoking in McDonald's is the one that, looking back, surprises me most. Fast food joints always had tiny tinfoil ashtrays that slid all over the table and barely held the remains of 2 cigarettes. A real pain in the ass for a booth full of teens hanging out. It was about as effective as having a pissing area in a swimming pool, too. Convincing your sibling to get up to change the channel. On the TV with separate dials for VHF, channels 2 to 13, and UHF, channels 14 to 51, that you also needed to whack on the side once in a while to fix the vertical stabilization. Standing on the TV wrapped in foil being the antenna. Calling someone's house and having to speak with their parent before talking with them. I was trying to explain this to my son. Also your jerk siblings picking up the other line to listen to your conversation. Haha, I was the bratty little sister in this scenario. I'm sorry, bro. And calling our parents' workplace and asking for them. I would always be so polite to the secretary who answered and try to be all professional about it. Hello, may I please speak with your dad? I was crushed to find out that she always knew it was me. I could have just said, hi, is my dad there? I called once and the receptionist asked me who I wanted to speak to. She was new. I answered my dad and she laughed, saying there were many dads. Could I be more precise? Nothing like calling a girl you're into and getting her dad on the phone. Or having a girl call the house, then your mom or dad just stands in the doorway making fun of your lame attempts at being cool. Or hearing the phone line getting a little more static sounding and realizing someone else in the house is listening in on the call. Or someone having to hang up the phone so someone else can use the internet. Worse, someone picking up the phone and killing your 4-hour download of a Quake 2 demo. 2001-2002, 12-year-old me would start 6 or 7 songs to download overnight when nobody was awake, just to find in the morning that my brother had used the phone at 3 in the morning. You've got a cell phone and it's after 9 p.m., stop being a dick. This still happens. Dad, I'm an adult, you have to stop teasing me. Son, you're 34, you have to stop living here. Grandpa, I hate both of you. Or your brother's blocking you from getting an important phone call. Lol. Yep. Or, if you were actually on a landline, listening for that click because you know one of your brothers was going to try and listen in. We used to call places, now we call people. And we have a brand new phrase we never needed before. Where you at? Calling your friend's house, getting a roommate, asking them to leave you a message. Which maybe they do. And maybe they don't. Going out into the world with no cell, a map in hand, hoping to find the new address you've never been to, and then in addition to that, hoping the people you were going to meet up would get there. If you got there and your friends weren't there, the most you could do was ask the business to lend you their phone or walk to a pay phone and call your friends' house phones to see if they picked up. If they didn't, you had no way of knowing if they were late, selling you out, or dead. The concept of getting lost on a car ride is pretty much extinct now. I think about all the times I had to print out directions from MapQuest to find someplace in advance. Now you can just type in an address or say something like gas stations near me and you get step-by-step directions with an ETA. Which also means the trope of "are we there yet?" is made an irrelevant question, as the kids also have phones and can see exactly how far they have to go. When I got my first GPS, which was a brick that I connected to a pocket PC, I took it with us on a trip to Kansas City. My wife made fun of me, because we'd been to KC 100 times, and knew where we were going. Our normal exit was closed for construction, and the GPS guided us to a different one, and through a neighborhood that we'd never been to before. My wife had a sudden realization that we only knew one route to anything in KC, and would have been hopelessly lost without GPS. It was world-changing. Haha, I used to work as a courier for a legal office when I was a teenager in Kansas City in the 00s. Those one-way streets used to F me up until I started just printing MapQuest directions and taping them to my steering wheel. So I've been in construction for 2 decades. We are rarely on a job site for more than 2 weeks, often shorter. Our boss would call us with an address or cross street if it was new construction and we would have to find it. We had maps of every area of Northern California in our truck to try and find all these places. And that's how when I was 21 I learned to read a paper map. I feel this. I used to work on an ambulance. When I first started, I had to use a Thomas Guide map book to find where we were going, and start navigating to the driver within 1 minute. I work in the office of a fire department, and while the guys have the MDTs in the trucks, we have so much trouble with them that I've started creating paper maps for them of new areas, cities growing fast, that have all the necessary info, streets, hydrants, noteworthy points. They will eventually learn the area by memory, but paper maps still have their place right now. At least until someone creates an MDT and mobile connection that doesn't suck. Good times. I delivered furniture in rural Illinois in the pre-cell phone days. We navigated by phone book maps and hand-scrawled directions on slips of paper. The addresses would be like County Road 50 or Rural Route 3, and the directions would say things like, go past the blue mailbox, and turn left. If you cross the creek, you went too far. Holy crap, I just remembered asking businesses to use their phone. Getting a new TV guide each Sunday with a newspaper and obsessing over it for hours, highlighting what shows/movies you wanted to watch, calling the movie theater to get Showtime, shopping at Sears Edit. Holy guacamole. Where did you all come from? Thanks for the upvotes, silver and other awards too. And making your Christmas list from the 800+ page Sears catalog. Going out as a kid from dawn until dusk without your parents being able to contact you or know where you are. Then knowing you have to go home when the street lights come on. We also had to be within shouting distance. Man, could our parents yell. We'd be way off in Timbuktu goofing around, and suddenly someone would realize there was the far-off cry of someone's mom, echoing in the summer breeze, abruptly ending our fun. Damn it. My mom had a brass bell she'd clang. We lived in a valley, and the sound from that thing would bounce off the hills like a pinball. There was nowhere it couldn't reach. I still have it here somewhere. I should get some brass polish and clean it up. My dad could whistle with his fingers real loud. When they were getting ready to go up north to stay with family, they'd tell us to get lost while they packed. Then when they wanted us back, my dad would just go outside and whistle. Additionally, we'd relay other kids' moms' yells. You'd hear Tony's mom yelling, "No, he was down the street," and yell for Tony yourself, so he'd know. We had to have each other's backs. There was an old TV advertisement for pasta where the mom yelled out the window for Anthony, and he ran home from blocks away. We were told to be home at dark 30. I'd call from a pay phone if I was going to stay out late. This is 100% still a thing. I live on a residential street in a major city. You cannot go outside at any point in the year if the sun is up without hearing the neighborhood kids laughing and playing. It's gotten way more pronounced with COVID too because they're not physically in school. This leads to great interactions, like some kids sprinting past our front window in cowboy boots, shirtless, wearing a raptor mask, screaming, "It's all over, it's all falling apart." Or the most charismatic little girl I've ever met who skidded her bike to a stop in front of me and said, "Two things, mister, your dogs are great and my sunglasses are awesome." And your parents not worrying about their kids' safety. They knew we'd be back eventually and only needed to worry if a cop showed up at their door. In fact, you could sometimes feel the disappointment in the air if you came home before dark on their day off. Edit. As a parent, it's probably impossible to not actually worry, but it seemed to be a significantly lesser degree of worry than what many parents today feel if they were to let their kids stay out all day with no form of contact. Edit 2. Didn't expect so much attention on this comment. It's fascinating to see so many different perspectives, so I'll add a little bit more of my perspective. My parents would let us play outside in the neighborhood and go anywhere we wanted as I was growing up. We were taught how to deal with strangers and potentially dangerous situations, and my parents never expressed fear of us being gone all day and into the night. Now, as a parent, I live very close to where I grew up, close enough to the same neighborhood. Things have gotten worse in these past years that I'm now nervous to go out at night by myself. I am terrified to think of my child going out and staying out all day and playing around the neighborhood like I did. Maybe I'm just much more aware of things as an adult, but it seems like random violence, kidnappings, and even local gang activity, and related violence and shootings, is just going up and up. I'm not sure the worry wasn't there. My mom once told me she hated letting us go off and play in the park and would worry the whole time. She knew it was good for us and likely nothing bad would happen. But she still worried. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.